Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I want to talk about the dangers of doing a doctorate. So these are 6 things I think will end your PhD. And if you don't know me, I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out to get through graduate school, and it was so tough that I decided to pay the favor forward and do something for you so that you have somebody else to sort of talk to about it. So, what are these different dangers of doing a doctorate? So this is really important, it's really relevant for anybody that's doing a PhD or a doctorate in any particular career or going into graduate school. But it's going to be most relevant to stuff that happens in a business school, just because I know that, right? So, but I think this is really relevant to anybody doing any sort of doctorate. So the first thing that's so incredibly important that will just basically terminate your PhD journey is teaching too much and spending too much time and considerable effort in teaching. There's a trade-off that ends up happening. So you do get money if you teach. If you don't know that, you get a little bit of money every time that you teach per course. And most institutions are going to be like that. And what ends up happening is you teach some and you get that money, you get that instant reward because it is really fun and exciting to actually teach and talk to people. But what you're doing is you're trading off long-term gain and long-term benefit from actually doing the research, because the research is the hard part. That's the sitting down and actually doing the hard work. And that's where the benefit actually comes from in the long run. So it's this long run, short run trade-off thing. So in the short run, so the next few years, it's going to be a really good experience to do that teaching. But then in the long run, you're just not going to get the research publications that you should need. And it's going to be really challenging to actually get, maybe it's tenure or getting your first job or whatever it is. So you got to spend a lot of time actually focusing on doing research versus the teaching. And you have to make that active trade-off. And I know you're going to want to teach, but just focus on doing the research. The second thing that's going to terminate your PhD and make it really difficult for you to continue on, and this is a really big one, because I think it's important, is depression. It's extremely common, and virtually most people I know will go through most people I've known have gone through some sort of bout of depression during their PhD. It's very, very common to go through those experiences. It's not unusual in any sort of way, but you have to figure out a way to navigate that. And knowing that that is going to happen along the way, that you're going to experience some, and it might not be like a serious depression or anything like that, where it's, months and months and months, which really common, by the way, but it might be just feeling really bad for, a month or two. And, you just have to know, you have to figure out ways to navigate that from happening or preventing that from happening. So building a network of friends and family, going for walks, getting out there, just doing things that are not sort of academically oriented, that's going to help you navigate some of these issues that you're going to feel and some of these things that you're going to feel. It's an important thing to think about. And it's going to happen. It happens to most people, by the way. It doesn't matter what kind of area, what thing you're doing. It's not necessarily all that uncommon to go through a bout of just kind of not feeling so positive about things. That's just life. But it seems to be a little bit more in academia because you're focused and you're doing things on your own and you're focused on performance so much. The third thing, I think this happens for a lot of people, is, things like death and bad things that happen in your family or within your, friends or something like that. So when you're doing a PhD, when you're going into academia, it is a long, long journey. And by definition, if you are spending any significant amount of time, you have a high likelihood of something happening within your immediate vicinity that is not going to be good in any sort of way. And so you have to figure out how to deal with that and do that trade-off of, how much time should I spend dealing with this versus doing the research and stuff like that. And you have to make that decision on what you should do. And, it's really up to you. Don't let anybody sort of tell you and what is the right amount in terms of, maybe it's grieving, for example, for somebody. Or maybe it is, just figuring out whether you should actually get back into the swing of things and keep focused and keep going on. It's really a personal decision. But if you let it go too long, it is going to derail you significantly from ever completing that project or that PhD that you're working on. That's a really important thing that's going to happen. The fourth thing that does happen, actually, believe it or not, is plagiarism or making up data, or fabricating data and doing things like that. So plagiarism is just blatantly copying from somebody else. Copying in of itself and copying an idea is okay, but it has to be sort of framed and made through your lens and discussed through your lens. The vast majority of the stuff that you should be doing should be borrowing from other people, but it always has to be through your language and what you are, how you're seeing the world. So it's different. And fabricating data, believe it or not, there's people that actually go out there and fabricate data and make things up. And there's extremely strong norms. So if you do any of this kind of stuff, you're just going to be kicked out of academia altogether, and you'll never get back in, and you'll be blacklisted. So there's this thing called blacklisted, where you will, no matter where you try to apply to, no matter what you try to do, you're going to have that tarnish on your name, and people are not going to want you to be at their institution. So you just can't get into that institution. There's really strong norms, a really tight-knit group. If you didn't know that in academia, and everybody kind of knows when there's something that's been a little bit dicey that's happened, and then you just kind of get like not a very good name. And so you have to be really, really careful about that. And people are really, and it's getting worse because there's been a lot of different scandals recently, and a lot of people that are concerned about validity of insight and validity of ideas in academia. And so people are really careful at this moment in terms of making sure that the things that they've done are correct and not, not sort of fabricating. So you have to be careful with that and focus on that and make sure that you are doing a really good job, or the best of your ability. I know it's hard. There's a lot of uncertainty. You don't know if the answer's right. You'll never know if the answer's right? Like, that's the whole point. But you have to make sure that you've done to the best of your ability, made sure that the answer's right. The fifth thing, when you are doing your PhD or doing your academic research, whatever it is just reading too much. I see this a lot where, and I catch myself doing this, and I'm sort of speaking for myself, is I will get into a moment where I'm reading too much and focusing too much on reading sort of the broader literature. And I have to say, nope, that's enough. I've read enough, and I have to go and do something else. So, if you find yourself where you're spending a week, or more if you're spending more than a week sort of reading a set of literatures, which is sometimes it's okay. But if you're spending more than a week doing reading sort of exercises and just spending all your time reading, you're probably reading too much, and you probably should be writing. So your job as an academic is always to be writing and thinking about writing as much as you can. So you got to be biasing your efforts towards writing as much as you can. You can read broadly, but you should go in kind of sprints where you read broadly, and then you do a bunch of writing, and then you go back and do reading again, and you constantly are doing that, rather than just reading for months on end or a month on end. That's too much reading. You're not going to accomplish that much, and you have to focus on doing the writing part of it. That's the hard part, and that's the part that's really tough and we all struggle with, but you have to do the writing more than the reading as much as you can. So the last thing, and I see this a lot, particularly with all of us, we all go through these experiences, but it's kind of, as you're learning about it, this happens a lot. So this is where you are too ambitious and too creative with the things that you're doing, and you're wanting to sort of tackle the world with the things that you're actually trying to do. And that's a recipe to not complete anything. And every time I choose something or choose a project or go and try something, I'm always like, this is going to be really simple and easy. Turns out it's absolutely not simple and easy. Everything, no matter how straightforward it is and how simple the thing that you're looking at is, it's always really tough. There's always more stuff that you should have done. There's always more things that need clarification. So my advice is to be as simple and straightforward as you can right from the get-go. And when you start thinking, oh, I'm going to do this amazing project, stop. It's not going to be amazing. It's going to be a lot of work, and you're going to be absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of work that you have to do. So focus on being simple as much as you can. And when it seems like this is like, oh, this is a really stupid idea. Well, it's probably actually a good idea because it's doable. And you can actually pursue this thing. If it seems so simple, it's not going to be simple when you actually dive in and do it. Really, I'm being absolutely serious. And if you're too creative and too ambitious, you're going to spend far too much time working on something that you should have been spending your time doing something else and focusing on doing a simpler project. So hopefully these things make sense to you. I think that these are the most relevant, most important things that will end your PhD. And, they do happen. I've been doing this long enough. I'm still young, but I've been doing this long enough that I've seen all of these things sort of play out, and they do affect your career. I've experienced some of these things as well. And they do affect what goes on in your life, and it does slow you down. So you have to be very careful that these things do not slow you down during your doctorate journey of getting a doctorate in whatever it is that you're doing, in doctorate in business. Just make sure that you're really cognizant of these things, and you're taking safeguards against it. Okay. So with that, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye.